For this problem, we are going to graph one complete cycle of the function y equals 3 minus 6 times sine square x. As we have y in the terms of 3 minus 6 times sine square x, let's simplify it. Let's see what we can do. Y equals 3 minus 6 sine square x. Common factor would be 3. We will write it as 3 times 1 minus 2 times sine square x. 1 minus 2 times sine square x is one of the three forms of the cosine double angle. As you recall, sine double angle is either cosine square x minus sine square x, or twice of cosine square x minus 1, or 1 minus twice of sine square x. So the form that we have in the problem here is 1 minus twice of sine square x. So then we're going to replace that with the cosine 2x. Simplify it to be y equals 3 times cosine of the 2x. And in this case, we can use to identify the value k, the a, the b, and the c as the standard form of the trig function that we use the numbers to find the property of the graph. In our case, k is 0, the a equals 3, the b equals 2, and the c equals 0. For the value k equals 0, that means no vertical shifts. For a equals 3, we use the value a to determine the amplitude of the graph, which is the absolute value of the a, or absolute value of the 3, which is 3. In this case, a is greater than 0, therefore no reflection about the x-axis. For the b value equals 2, we use b to compute the period of the graph, or the period of one cycle. The period is 2 pi divided by b, or 2 pi divided by 2. That turns out to be pi. That means one complete cycle, the length is pi. The following part of this, we're going to find the increment or the delta x, the increment of the fourth equal subinterval. And the delta x is computed by the period value divided by 4. In this case, the period is pi divided by 4. Therefore, we're going to have the increment with the pi over 4. The value c equals 0. The c tells us about the phase shift, or the beginning point of the cycle. The formula we use is negative c over b. Since c is 0, so the phase shift equals 0. So we're going to start at the point 0. So next, we're going to use information to sketch the graph for one complete cycle. We can build the table real quick to see the order pairs of this graph for one cycle. Angle x and the y as 3 times cosine of 2x. Starting at 0, pi over 4, pi over 2, 3 pi over 4, and then pi. The value can be 3 times the 5 key numbers of the cosine graph. The typical cosine graph, starting at the maximum, intercept, minimum, intercept, and back to maximum. The maximum for one typical graph, the cosine, would be 1, and then 0, negative 1, 0, and back to 1. Therefore, the value that we put in the parentheses here would be 1, 0, negative 1, 0, and then positive 1. Simplify to be 3, 0, -3, 0, and +3. The ordered pair gonna be 0, 3, pi over 4, 0, pi over 2, -3, 3 pi over 4, 0, and the last one will be pi, 3. Use them to plot the points on the xy plane. First, we're gonna make the increment with starting at 0, and then the next gonna be pi over 4, and then pi over 2, 3 pi over 4, and then pi. 5 key points. The maximum is 3, minimum is -3. If we make this increment as scale as pi 2, -2, so 3 is right here, -3 is right there. Starting at 0, 3, and then pi over 4, the height is 0, down to the minimum, back to 0, and then the last point gonna be back up to the maximum, which is +3, and connect all the points with the smooth curve. As you see from the information, since k is 0, no vertical shift, so the range of the graph gonna be just from the minimum to maximum, or -3 to +3. And the period, which is the length from the right end minus the left end, the right end, so the period would be pi minus 0, or just pi, the same as the way that we computed. And we get the graph of 3 minus 6 times sine square of the x for one complete cycle.